Just when it seemed like the end of the Raptors head coaching search was imminent, a curveball has been thrown as two of the most popular candidates are reportedly out of the running. So in today's video, we're going to discuss which candidates are still in the mix to be hired and who might be leading the race to land the Raptors head coaching job. Let's get into it. Welcome NBA and Raptors fans to Amateur Hour Sports. This is a YouTube channel dedicated to Toronto Raptors content. So, if you like what you see from today's video, you want to see more content just like this as we follow the rest of the Raptors head coaching search and as we get closer to the NBA draft, then make sure you are subscribed to the channel to help me on my road to 15,000 subscribers. And remember to hit that notification bell so you know exactly when these videos are posted. But the Raptors head coaching search, it really felt as though last week that we were getting towards the end of the search. A report suggested that some of the finalists were named for the Raptors, and even though they didn't explicitly say who those finalists were, we could kind of piece together the information to figure out which of the candidates were in the final stages. But now people don't really know what to think. Two of those leading candidates are apparently out of the mix. We don't know which candidates are still in the mix. We don't know how far along these discussions are. It certainly feels as though we're getting close to the answer on who the next head coach is going to be, but it feels like we're a lot further away from that answer than we were last week. If you asked me this time last week, I would have said this seems like it's going to be done in the next week and a half, the next 10 days or so, but now if you ask me, I really don't know what to think. And the thing about this coaching search is the Raptors have the opportunity to be patient. First of all, as far as head coaching searches around the league go, well, there's only one head coaching vacancy remaining in the NBA, and that is the Raptors. So there's no threat of any other team poaching any of our candidates. And I feel as though even though there were a lot of teams who were looking for head coaches, none of the head coaches that were hired around the league really seemed like they were viable candidates for the Raptors. If the Raptors wanted to hire Adrian Griffin, they probably would have done it and not let him go to the Bucks, but instead, he's now the head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't think Frank Vogel was ever in the running for the Raptors head coaching job. He is the Phoenix Suns head coach. Obviously, the Sixers hired Nick Nurse. We were not going to hire Nick Nurse. And as far as Monty Williams goes, even though he was my favorite candidate, it did seem as though he didn't want to take on a coaching job this season, but when you throw that much money like the Detroit Pistons did, well, it can do a little bit of convincing. So no rush in terms of trying to beat out any other teams to the punch on hiring any of our head coaches, but another thing people are citing as a reason for impatience is the upcoming NBA draft. The NBA draft is just over 2 weeks away on June 22nd, so you want to have your head coach involved in the drafting process. You want to have your head coach involved in the scouting process. This seems like a pretty good theory, though typically the head coach has very little involvement with the draft process. At the end of the day, the coach is focused on the players on the team and getting the best out of those players. He's not spending all his time scouting players. He's not spending all his time looking at these players in the practices. Typically, that is handled by Dan Tolzman as part of the Raptors front office. I believe he is the assistant GM. And while he's going through that process, Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster are going through the coaching process, being that next one into the team. So when we spoke about this last week, I was convinced that there were 4 finalists who were looking at this job, at least 4 finalists. But the finalists that I really could put a name on being in the mix were Sergio Scariolo, Kenny Atkinson, Jordi Fernandez, and Steve Nash. Scariolo is coaching in Italy right now. Kenny Atkinson is a current Golden State Warriors assistant. Jordi Fernandez is the associate head coach of the Sacramento Kings. Steve Nash, of course, is unemployed. And I was never a fan of Steve Nash, but he was getting a lot of praise and a lot of steam going behind him from Raptors fans online. Every forum I see, every comment section I see, is people seemingly saying that Steve Nash is the obvious choice. You should make Steve Nash the next head coach. And so I read those and I wonder if they're more satirical because I really don't see why Steve Nash would be in anybody's pole position given the great head coaches that are available around as well. Well, it seems as though I'm going to get my wish here because Steve Nash is one of the coaches that is reportedly out of the race to become the next head coach. My favorite candidate of this crop of coaches was Jordi Fernandez from the Sacramento Kings. A very great offensive mind, helped orchestrate one of the most potent half-court offenses in the NBA this season with those Sacramento Kings. Really took a team that was struggling, middling near the middle of mediocre of the NBA, but found a way to get such a high level out of that offense, has had great developmental experience working in the G League with Cleveland's G League affiliate, working with the Cavaliers, working under Mike Brown at the Cavs and the Kings, working under Mike Malone with the Denver Nuggets. It seemed like a great candidate there. Also, somebody pursuing a PhD in sports psychology. I think that's so important, but not to my wish. Jordi Fernandez is reportedly out of the race as well. We got the reports that Steve Nash and Jordi Fernandez were out of the running to become the next Raptors head coach via the Toronto Stars and via a piece written by Doug Smith. Doug Smith indicated that Scariolo and Kenny Atkinson seem to be in the mix. Also, Darko Rajakovic is also seemingly in the mix at the moment, but the reality of this situation is, and even Doug Smith spoke about it in the piece that he wrote, is that we just don't have a lot of the information. It's just little leaks of information that are coming up, but we don't really have the full picture. We don't really have the full scope on the situation. So all we can really do is speculate here. But there's also been, since Doug Smith released that piece on the Toronto Star, some conflicting reports that do suggest that actually Jordi Fernandez is still in the mix. Mark Stein has reported that Jordi Fernandez is a candidate to look out for, somebody you need to watch, and this is definitely a basketball mind online that you can trust. Doug Smith, as much as I do not like his opinionated pieces most of the time, I do feel like he is a viable source of information and fact, so I don't think he's fabricating anything in this circumstance. Perhaps he's right, perhaps he's wrong, but he's getting fed some misinformation that he doesn't quite understand is misinformation because you don't know. We're really grasping at information at the moment, which would leave in this situation Scariolo and Kenny Atkinson as the possible finalists here. I mentioned last week that those guys were finalists, and Scariolo, we do seemingly have some confirmation that he has done a second round of interviews in the final process. It was revealed that Scariolo's interview that was scheduled to be in person was postponed, but it was going to be changed to a video interview via Skype. First of all, using Skype in 2023, get with the program, get with the times, everybody. But at least when we got that information that the interview got postponed, it was at least mostly some confirmation suggesting that yes, he is getting another interview. It seemed like at the start of yesterday, Scariolo was the favorite to become the next head coach, and then as the day progressed, some steam started to go towards Kenny Atkinson becoming the next head coach. So I believe those two are firmly in the mix, but given the lack of information overall that we have on what's going on with the Raptors, given how tight-lipped the organization typically is, given the fact that it's Masai Ujiri, and we really don't know what's going on until he actually goes and does it, given all of this information around the team, like the Raptors heading into the 2021 draft, all signs were pointing towards Jalen Suggs, and then the shock on draft night when it's Scotty Barnes' name called at the 4th overall pick. Very, very few people reported that the Raptors were looking that direction. All signs are pointing towards Jalen Suggs. So we may have a similar situation with the coaching search. We don't know what's going to happen until Masai Ujiri goes and does it. So even though, according to Doug Smith, Fernandez and Nash are out of the race, he also indicated that perhaps these coaches can come back into the race. Things can change. All of these decisions are fluid. Maybe we don't get one of the coaches we want. Maybe we don't agree to terms with one of the coaches we want. So we look in a different direction. These are some of the coaches that could come back into it. Maybe we can also speculate that they haven't been removed of the final candidates at all. Maybe they're still in the mix and this was misreported by Doug Smith. We just don't know. So it's important to consider all of these options as still open. I would just say at this present point, it's a lot less likely that Fernandez or Nash becomes the next head coach given this piece of information, but we can't rule it out completely. Even still, if the final candidates are Scariolo and Kenny Atkinson, the Raptors are in very good hands here. Two modern thinking coaches, especially from Kenny Atkinson's perspective. Scariolo might be older, but he has consistently adapted his styles. If he hasn't adapted his styles, he wouldn't be able to have continuous success in so many different places in Europe. Two very tactical offensive minds that I think would fit really well with this Toronto Raptors team, and that is something that would be great to see for this team. A real contrast to what we have with Nick Nurse, more of a defensive mind. Raptors may go in the other direction and push for an offensive-minded coach. Going for an offensive-minded coach, I've continued to say in my videos and my streams that going for an offensive-minded coach would scream to me that Masai Ujiri, for the better or for the worse, is looking to maximize this core for another year. Get the most out of this core. Where we had so many struggles this season was the half-court offense, and it felt like most of the struggles in the half court were directly as a result of the coaches not really having prepared anything to face those tough battles in half court settings. Bringing in a coach that has that awareness would give Masai Ujiri a further perspective on just what we have with this core and what this core could be. Now, you're probably watching this video disagreeing with this mindset, disagreeing with this. Myself, I probably don't want to just stick with this core for another year, but based on what we're seeing from the coaching search, once again, I reiterate, that's the likeliest course of action that I see from Masai Ujiri this summer, and not really making any significant moves, just trying to further strengthen this core and find a coach that is going to get the most out of them this season. Along the way as well, hey, if we're hiring Atkinson or we're hiring Scariolo, if it doesn't go the right way this season with the core, if we want to hit a reset, want to retool a little bit, these coaches can work with the development as well. These coaches have had experience developing teams as well, so it's not the end of the world if you're hiring a coach that's just here predominantly for the offensive mind. They also have the developmental experience that we could use for the long-term project as well. As far as the head coaching search, once again, I know we're getting antsy. I know we're getting like, I want to know who it is, but the reality is you don't need to be impatient here. There's no rush. This is a very, very important decision for the Raptors in their future. They want to make sure that they're getting this right. And to be honest, with a great GM like Bobby Webster, with a great president like Masai Ujiri, great people running the Raptors front office, it's a desirable job. So I don't want to hear any of this nonsense. I've seen comments that the coaches don't want to coach in Canada. They don't want to coach this team. That's definitely not the case. There might be one or two that don't want the job, but the reality is if you're this far along in the coaching process and you have a desire to be an NBA head coach, this is a good position for you. And there's only 30 NBA head coaching jobs. So when one becomes available, especially for a team that is, not in a complete rebuild mode, having no direction whatsoever, this is an interesting job to take on. So people are going to be interested. And of the candidates that we spoke about today, I think if the Raptors did point their finger on one and say, this is the guy that we want, he would take the position. So great candidates in the finalists here. Even if Fernandez and Nash are removed, there's some great candidates here. The Raptors are going to get a great coach. They're taking their time and being precise and being very detail-oriented to make sure they get this decision right. So what do you guys think of the coaching search? Who do you want to be the next Raptors head coach? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that is it for me for today. Took a break from the draft profile videos. The next two videos will likely be specifically about Kobe Buffkin and Jordan Hawkins. Those will be the next two draft profile videos, so stay tuned for those by subscribing to the channel, helping me on my road to 15,000 subs. Hit that notification bell as well so you never miss out on a video, and drop a like if you did enjoy to help this land on some more recommended pages, and I will see you again next time for another video.